Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today we have Baz Beerens, the founder of WeTransfer, the file transferring service that has 100 million plus users. It's the easiest file transferring service out, and you've done so much, in the tech space and just the design space. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you to being here. Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Great. So I'd love to just be able to start with really just the origins of your story. Growing up as a kid, were you always entrepreneurial? Was this, was technology something that was a passion? How did this all begin?
Right. Uh, well, the entrepreneurial thing was indeed when I was young. When I was 12, 13, I made, I'm 53 at this moment. In that moment, I made even some advertising for magazines, but then really with the letters that you have to put on a paper and make drawings, etc. So I loved advertising, I loved graphic design, but I tried to find all kind of things just to that I could sell, or even was in a big shopping street. I was selling necklace of, I said earrings. So yeah, and the weird thing is, it is not from my parents or my family. So this was just who I was. I don't know. I saw opportunities everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. And then I had the feeling that I wanted to do something graphic. That's what I liked. Yeah, graphic
Right.
marketing. Yeah, yeah. Well, I didn't know what marketing was at that moment, but what it turned out now, that's the reason. Yeah. So that's when it
So
started when I was young.
when you were young. So this was always like a passion, graphics, and what was technology also this passion too? Was it more like design you were into?
Well, actually, not because when I was 15 or 16, I had that Commodore computer, right, which I liked, and I did some programming with it. But I'm not that I can program or anything. It's not technology. But what I can start is that I did a graphic lyceum. Then I went to working at a printing company, large printing company in the Netherlands, where my father was working. And I also did an internship, and I wanted me to work there. And then I found out it was really great. I worked directly for Nike US, and their
Right.
their standards of quality is pretty high. And then later they came with Nike Europe, and well, we worked together. And on the press, there's a lot of, when you're at the press, when things are printed, uh, and it's not just the right color, you have to reprint, etc. It's a really weird process. And then in a little bit later stadium, the web internet was coming up and I started working, I think in the 90s, or the start 90, early 90s with it. And then I found out also with web, when you had the collections um, on the web, it was easy to put them there, catalogs, etc. And then you couldn't adjust colors or anything because it's everybody's screen colors are different. So for me, it was a relief that you really could change things immediately. Let's say like this on the web, according to printing. I love printing. I still love printing process and everything what's physical. But then I found out this is great. And then I worked at Nike Europe because I had a passion on the design and marketing and
Right.
etc. And then I knew already I wanted to start my own agency. And I was lucky because I was when I left Nike, I knew they needed me. So I was made myself a little bit dependable. So I took them as a client, did catalogs for them, all kind of print activities and design. So that was, for me, that was great. And also web-based stuff, and I love to do that. So,
Right.
and they gave me the trust to let's say invent things with them, for them. And so they both trust from both ways to give me a lot of opportunities to do things. And I love the web more and more. Yeah. So we made CD-ROM, CDI, DVDs at that moment. Yeah. Yeah. So that was in
Right.
'98 when I did that. Yeah.
So Baz, you're essentially this like creator, in terms of you like design, you're into like you understand the creators, so you started building this platform for creators with that kind of experience, it seems.
You mean WeTransfer?
What?
You mean sorry? You mean I created WeTransfer? You mean?
Well, like when you were creating transfer, yeah, like you had the experience being essentially
Yeah.
like a creator, like from a design perspective, so you knew the problems that were needed to be solved
Right.
with something like transfer.
Right. So indeed, so a little to go a little back. So in '98, I started my own agency, and then I worked for Nike Europe, and like I said, and then we created some tools, some digital tools with our developers. And then one day I got a link from one of my developers, and he said, instead of sending a courier, you can use this link. And then the next day I said, this is great, because I sent it by email, this link. And at that moment it was FTP actually, right? What was used, and you have to call for the password, etc. So I said, the next day he gave me another link. I said, well, can't you make something that I don't have to ask you and upload it on the server, that I do it via an email? And of course, so he made 2 days later, and my colleague made a really nice design, full screen and just a filling field. And then the file was sent immediately. So I said, oh, but can you, that I upload more files and then put the send button? Okay, 2 days later. And what happened? So my clients at that time, and I was lucky that I could work for nice clients, like, because my ex-colleagues or people from Nike went to Tommy Hilfiger, to Levi, so I all had nice brands to work for. But they all started to use this because I sent it to them, and I thought, hey, this is faster than a courier. I don't have to log in, and that was something that it seemed that was a kind of part of the success. No login, no limitations. Let's say 2 MB at that moment was the maximum. No, sorry, what
Yeah.
did I say? Yeah, 2 GB. Sorry, 2 GB. And while you send it was there, but that was not. Let's say it was not penetrated very well in Europe, and it was only in English. So I think the timing was great. So I said we created this, and then we tested it for 2, 3 years. And I remember
Wow.
even that one day somebody from Nike in Belgium, they said, oh, it doesn't work. I went there and I found out the screensaver went on and it blocked the transfer. So really easy thing. So I had 2 years to take out all the diseases and problems that it had. So that's why I called it simplexity. It was getting simple. It's simple from the outside, but it's complex from the inside. Yeah. So this was great. So that we used it for 2 years, and then if I go, I go further. This is I like this story, but then I became friends with Nalden. He had a blog, and this blog was about tech, new trends, and he had a few million followers, also in the US, worldwide. And
Right.
he wanted to do things together. And his business model was that the backgrounds were non-obtrusive advertising. So even the Nikes, the Philips, the Universals, they made advertising for him, which he called advertising, which I like. So
Yeah.
non-obtrusive. And I said, look, this is nice. You want to do things together. So, well, let's combine my transfer. It was called Transfer OI, according to my agency, OI Transfer. He said, let's do it, and I'll rebuild it. And after 1 year, I come back to you, and you become shareholder, and let's do it. And so it went on. And we launched in December 2009. We did some test version in between, and I loved it. And at the beginning, which was fun actually, is that the agencies that worked also with Nike and what I worked with, they didn't use it because they said, look, nice that you're working with Nike, etc., but you can see our files on the server, which technically we could. So that was a weird thing. So we started this more independent brand, and my partner also said, "Look, what I said, transfer is cool. The name is cool. I like that it's a cool name, but what do I transfer or e transfer?" And he said, "Well, you send it, but we transfer." I said, "Oh, this sounds cool." There was no we, so that's how it started. I said, "Well, let's keep it as a working title," and so this went on, and then we launched, and then it was ridiculous because why I launched it also was because I saw that people loved it. There was no login, it was free, and the funny thing is also with the developers, I had whole discussions, and this is more about yeah. What's interesting is that if you work with WeTransfer, you can fill in actually every fill in field from your own email address. You can fill in also somebody else's address, so you can literally, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but you can abuse it, right? You can. So they said, well, this is so we have to have a login. I said, well, let's not do it. Let's trust the world and see how, if it's abused, we can always change. And then, to be honest, for 5, 6, 7 years, that was only happening 1 or 2 times a year. So I'm happy, and that's part of our success, that not log in. And we found out already that, well, we're in Europe, so we had to translate it. So after 1 year in 8 languages.
Yeah.
So that was really that we were also different than you send it. Let's say it like this, is that we didn't have that maximum after 50 megabytes you have to pay. It was free to do, but we found out that people loved the background. So we started with to introduce the backgrounds to have your own
Mhm.
area, your own advertising actually. and that worked out very well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you,
yeah.
Baz, you wound up giving like 30% of the banner ad space on the website to charities and to different artists. Like that's must have helped them so much, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it did. That was an idea for also of Nolan. He said, let's give a part back to the design community. I mean, we have a passion of aesthetics, of design, non-obtrusive things like the advertising, and we said let's combine that to make the advertising be part of the rest of the design so it fits in. So actually also the mystics that not
Right.
actually till today there's even people who don't realize that we're showing advertising because there's not a lot of text, etc. And we try to avoid that. And also the mystic around it gives it a higher yeah, how you say, a click rate, a higher uh,
Yeah, it's more organic.
let's say, is more organic, indeed, indeed. So this combination went well, and so we love to give people a platform, and that turned out well. And what was
Yeah.
interesting, that was a journey that started. We learned so much, and what we did, what I like to say is that, and well, it is very obvious and it's in all the books, but we put the user central. What do we want? What do they want?
Right.
What do we like, but what do they like? So we started that, and even the entity was started, I think, after a year. We didn't have an entity yet while we were
Huh.
doing business. And sorry you sent it, but we used their terms of conditions for 1.5 years. I think we just replaced their text with our WeTransfer, so they were even not the right one. So anyway,
Great.
what was actually fun is that also actually the US was walking behind for us, and we didn't know why. So I asked a US fellow. I said, "Look, why do you think it's not used so much in the US?" He said, "Well, it said in your info website where the separate site, he said it says you're based in Amsterdam." So he said, "For me, that's the city of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and I don't want my files to be stored there." And I thought, okay, it is you. So I didn't know it was so important. I don't know. He said it could be, it's about trust. It's having your file sent over the web. And I understood. So what I did,
Right.
I rented in a great place in San Francisco an office, and I had just one chair. So I had a post office, a post address. And then I put as an head office the US at first. And then suddenly you saw the US usage growing. Yeah. And that was really interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a lot, and then I learned a lot about perception, and then that's something what I love. This, I mean, this is a part of perception as well. And
Mhm.
when you think, why did it work out so fast? Why did this work? I think I feel it's a combination of the timing was great, right? If you compare it, I mean, timing was in this case, we were lucky with that. It was the tone of voice that we put on the website, which at this moment, I'm sure we cannot write it anymore. But at that moment, it said we are the rock stars of the interwebs. Guys want to be us, girls want to be with us, and for the rest, we're drinking coffee and keep the service running. I mean, I couldn't. We had it for a few years, uh, but it was fun at that moment. The web
Yeah.
was more different 14 years ago,
Right.
and then now, and also the tone of voice, and it was the design, the simplicity. And what we noticed is that I saw people on Twitter reacting on this concept. It was the mix of this concept seems to be working out very well. That were really, I saw like some cool US hip hop guys, like really, I love you guys, and very sweet text. While I saw also like a grandma from where saying the same kind of text, and we thought, wow, like this is what we did. Is like everybody likes it. Let's say likes it, loves this. So yeah, it was really interesting. And the other part of the success is, and which I really would like to share. It's where let's talk about is the virality.
Right.
I mean, the snowball effect. Let's say our product is really how you say that it works perfect because of the
So well.
virality. Because
Yeah.
after one, let's say, I think after 3 months, we were already used in 190 countries because one of the three receivers became a sender, or let's say a transfer. So it worked so well. And then we found out that you can tweak that. So if I do sometimes some presentations, I mention virality is something that people can really, sometimes companies or people think like, this is just happening, is word of mouth. But I believe you can, on a really, I mean, okay, we have these days, we have tell a friend or these kind of things, but there is, if you look on all the ways you can try to see if there's virality, I think it
Hmm.
is more powerful than any advertising or free publicity or direct sales, all the things how you could grow. So it's interesting. And then this virality, of course, I thought the US is a big market. There's a lot of users. We saw our pro account or plus account at that moment was growing fast. But then I realized with that growing part, it's still not growing faster than it would be in another country because it's just that one on three. So what I tried to do is to work together with Getty Images, with GoPro, to plant more seeds with companies who have communities. That so they
Right.
so actually the virality is more spread. You do some publicity, and this is helping was helping us growing faster. Let's say like this. Yeah.
Yeah. So those partnerships and using and bring going into those communities definitely helped. I mean,
Yes.
you launched your own community essentially too. You send out weekly like newsletters now, and you have your own design community with
Right.
WeTransfer. Was that something that just made sense because you saw anyways this community was so important?
Right. Yeah. And yeah, we did. And what we were surprised is that. Um, at the beginning, we found that a lot of people say, well, I'm a fan. And I thought, I'm a fan of WeTransfer. And I think it's, I mean, would I say that about Google or I'm a fan? And then I say, sorry for my words. I just said, like, we're just a fucking email service. But I understand what you do. And people thought that we were cool and that because we had cool
Right.
effort, we were lucky to have cool designers and nice brands, etc. But
Yeah.
actually, we tried to help, but that was not our purpose. It was just the advertising, the perception. Well, like maybe an example, I thought at that moment where we saw that growing, I put the new album of Lady Gaga. I just put a nice, I found on the web. I put it as a background, and it looked like Lady Gaga was advertising on WeTransfer. But and that's what I read on Twitter. Look, wow, cool. Lady Gaga's also on WeTransfer. But I just put it there and a link to her new album, and I did the same with some other artists, and that was fun because there was also an upcoming
Yeah.
artist. Well, his server was almost blown up, and I was invited to all the concerts because they didn't know where it was. Well, they saw on Google Analytics where it was coming from. But the perception was fun. I liked that because we had that positions that we gave for free. So yeah,
Yeah.
please stop if
And,
I go on because it's a nice journey.
and then Troy Carter got involved eventually, right? Joined the board as
Right.
well. So that just
Yeah,
made sense anyways because it was so used in the music space, right?
definitely, definitely. And of course, music, the musicians were great because they are the great spreaders to put their own music, and that's what we like. We don't want service to be abused for anything. It's just they put their music, their link, and on Twitter or other channels, and when we saw that happening with David Bowie, he loved us. Mick Jagger, he loved us, and Prince. We saw them putting, I think it was Prince, as an example. Justin Bieber, they put links on the web of their new tracks via WeTransfer and on their own account. We thought, wow, this is cool. This is, and we saw that growing, like, and actually, I wanted to go out of San Francisco because there's where the tech community is. And what I always said is like the tech community is nice, but we're not even a tech company. Okay, there's technology behind it, but it's also a media platform, right? That's what we have, and so let's be more in the entertainment industry. Let's be more in LA, where is the music,
Right.
centered, where actors are centered, and
Mhm.
let's get out of that technology part, and then all of my partners said, look, we should have Troy Carter because we think he's cool. Let's ask him. And I think this was his first board membership, and he did it. And then via somebody that we knew, and we were introduced. And from that moment, he introduced us to a lot of people, which was
Really?
also he was
That was his
entering
biggest
us.
contribution. Like the introductions he brought in was just it just helped grow the company so much.
Yeah, he did in a certain way, and actually, what he told me is also that at that moment I wanted to sell the company. We had
Huh.
a investor later on board because I thought things were going very well, but I thought let's spread our chances for the future. Let's get some. cash out of the company, also from some other shareholders that worked, and also developers that had shares.
Yeah.
Let's say, let's take something out. Let's do a little secondary. But also it was a startup, and when there's like 30, 40 people, I thought like, wow, this is growing very big, and we were approached by a lot of people, and I'm a product guy, so yeah, I was distracted a lot for a year. People miss me. My internal communication was really low. And so I decided to have this investor, which we really have a good connection with, and let's have them entering the world and teach us how to go on. And then I realized already after 1 or 2 years that the investor told me, boss, do you want to do this actually, or shall we hire another CEO? And I'm like, what? I was offended for half an hour. And then suddenly there fell something off me. And he said, well, think about it a year, and you can see. I said, no, I come back to you after a week. And then I said, look, we have to grow up to go on or not. And Troy told us actually to us that he said, guys, you are in a moment now. You should go on. You shouldn't sell. And I thought, okay, maybe you're right. I said, but yeah, come on, I'm divorced, so come to LA. And I said, well, I cannot. My wife doesn't allow me with my kids. So I said, and so I said after a week, I said, look, please let's have a CEO. I said, but what am I going to do? He said,
Mm.
then let's be the executive chairman, your strategy, and we have an operational CEO. And that was the biggest was a big step for me, but it was great. That was really great to have a CEO. But I said also, I have not the experience to do it. And afterwards, I know I didn't have that, and I couldn't do it like our previous CEO and our current CEO is doing this. So that was a great moment. Although, of course, a motivation, I know, and I love the people love me. That was not the case. But to do this, but strategic and product, I'm still till the moment till today involved in the strategy, and I have a lot of coffees with the still the current CEO and be in the
Yeah.
board. And then I became a chairman of the board, and then they said like. Then we want to do an IPO last year, but that was just before 2 days before we just started wanted to do the IPO, it was the Fed who mentioned that they wanted to hire the how you say that to increase the interest. So everybody pulled a little bit back. So we said we have to not to do it. But I think after at the end, till when you look at the stock market today, that was a wise choice to
Yeah.
do. But so we hired. I knew also I was not the right chairman. Let's say like this. Didn't have the experience, so we have a great chairman at this moment. I'm in the board, still involved with the strategy, and this is what I like the most. So my
Yeah.
thing also too that I want to share with all the founders, like all the founders don't have to be a great CEO or at least not in the future. And I think, and I see that, and you might have seen that as well. There's so much founders who are too long on their position, and then I think it's also you're doing it for a company, of course, also for yourself. But yeah, that's what I
Right.
believe. I'm happy with the choice.
Do you think like that there's certain technologies that are going to really change file sharing in the future, like blockchain or maybe AR, like we saw with the Apple Vision Pro headset? Like, do you think some of these things are really going to have an impact on file sharing, or is it going to remain pretty constant?
No, that will have an impact, definitely, because you see already there's a change, and that's why we have to change as well. At that moment, we were like, say, I always say, if you have a product or an existing product, you want to be the authority, you want to be way ahead from competition,
Yeah.
and not only for competition, but just for the people, right? And like, I mean, Steve Jobs is a great example that he's pioneering with the iPhone and iPod and whatever, all the great things he did. So I think that if you look at that, and that's what we're doing at WeTransfer as well. So it's not only that you share files, you also can view files. So things are
Yeah.
changing, that you can chat with it. And now this week indeed, I saw the new Apple
Hmm.
glasses, or I said it, VR glass. So I mean, yeah, things are changing a lot. So we have to change, and actually the
Right.
technology is changing, so we have to adapt to it. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, it doesn't go on like this, but we have to be part of that. So we're doing that with newsletters, different kind of products, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think, would you consider like WeTransfer to even be a competitor to Dropbox or Box, or is it just entirely a different category? Because it is a very different product.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, well, there is an overlap, of course, but
Yeah.
for Dropbox, we feel the process is different. It is more closed process. It is a little bit more complicated, less simple. and of course it has a reason. So I use it also. So for really sharing with things with in the same documents, etc. We can do that as well, but I think they're great. But at the end, I think we can work next to each other. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But uh, and it's when you want to send or share a file, send a file very easily, very fast. I think you should be with us. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. And, like, what is the next step for you now? Because you mentioned like your role changed a bit at WeTransfer, and you also created like this B2B marketplace, and you have your design firm. So, and you have a you're involved in venture capital. Like, what is
You're
the
well
next step?
informed. You're well informed. Yeah, you did your homework. No, yeah, I'm indeed in the funds as well. Well, actually, what I'm doing at 80%, you cannot find anything about it. So this is what fun is that 80% of my time now I'm spending on creating with three friends, three of my best buddies, champagne brand, champagne luxury brand, I have to say.
Really?
So it really, and Champagne, as you know, probably know, is coming from that little area in France, which is from my place, 5.5 hours drive. So every 2 weeks I'm
Yeah.
there, and we're buying our grapes, helping with growers. We're really starting from the beginning to highly, well, we're trying to have, let's say, a very good champagne, and I cannot say the best because yeah, we can argue about taste, but really a special champagne. And together, it's called Matron, Matrone in French, Matron, also honoring the women in the world. We thought that was a nice name. And it also about perception. It sounds established as well because you have
Right.
Macron, you have Amarone, so we could imagine a Matron Cuvée Prestige that it sounds really as an established brand while we're still starting. And you have in Champagne a lot of brands that are existing for a few hundred years. But we believe we can disrupt a little bit in our way. And we found a way that we think there's a big market, that it's different. They love these products than the existing ones. So I'm really excited about this. And why is because
Yeah.
we do it with a membership, and we want to be sold in the gastronomy in 20
Mhm.
countries. So we use the web, but it's a luxury product. It is when you talk about champagne, people get a smile on their face and they get happy.
Right.
It's party. And of course, the packaging and around it is my background, the graphic, the aesthetics, the luxury products
Right.
around. It's like, and it's not only the cooling thing, but it's also a bag. It's really has to be a fashion luxury brand with a teddy bear or house perfume, and we're doing all these kind of things, and also yeah, together with the web luxury, but also the farmer side, the ground, your feet on the terroir, how the French say, and the grapes. So it has it all in it. And then actually during Corona at the beginning, we fell in love with this, and we thought this is maybe how I will go further. And you really have to look further because the first bottles come out in 3 years. So that's you still have to do that process. But this is what I like. I like to do. But also with the funding that we do with the Dutch Founders Fund, where I'm a part of the co-founders, it's really nice to especially my part is more on the branding side, of course. But yeah, I
Mm.
really like to do that to help. And yeah,
Yeah. No, it
yeah.
definitely makes sense. I'm excited to see what you guys create. That sounds like an interesting idea for sure.
Thanks, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think that's it for us now. I appreciate you coming on, Baz, and it's been really just interesting learning of your story, and you're just creative in many different areas, and definitely excited to see where you go next, and the future of WeTransfer, the future of Matron, the future of what you're doing. It's definitely something great to watch. Thanks for coming on.
great, Ben. Thanks for being here, and good luck with the podcast.